The Diamond Sutra, Chapter 12, Revering the Orthodox Teaching. Moreover, Subhuti, you should know that all the gods, men, and asuras of the world should make offerings to any place at which even so few as 4 lines of verse from this sutra are spoken, and so forth, just as they would to a Buddha's shrine or temple. How much the more so to any place where people can completely receive, hold, read, and recite the sutra. Subhuti, you should know that such people accomplish the foremost and most rare of dharmas. In any place the sutra text is found, there is the Buddha or a reverent disciple. Moreover, indicates that the passage of sutra continues from the previous one. For some reason, it may not be convenient to speak the entire sutra, so a 4-line gatha is chosen. One similar to those mentioned before. Perhaps all with marks is false and empty. If you see all marks as no marks, then you see the Tathagata. Use any 4 lines which you consider appropriate to speak in response to each opportunity, and practice complete giving to cure each living being of his particular problem. The place where you speak even no more than 4 lines of sutra text is a place where the gods and the men and the asuras of the world come to make offerings. All actually refers to all beings in the 6 paths of rebirth: gods, men, asuras, animals, hungry ghosts, and beings in the hells. However, only gods, men, and asuras are specifically mentioned in the passage of sutra text, because it is not easy for beings in the 3 evil paths to make offerings to the triple jewel. The world. There are 2 kinds of worlds: the sentient world and the material world. The sentient world includes all beings with sentience who have breath and blood. What lacks breath and blood is called insentient. The material world includes rooms, porches, halls, houses, mountains, rivers, the great earth, all the 10,000 things. The sentient world is also called proper retribution. Why does the world exist? Because sentient beings exist. If there were no living beings, there would be no world. The material world is insentient. And since the insentient depends upon the sentient, it is called the dependent retribution. Proper retribution refers to beings undergoing their appropriate retributions, as is the case with the people who live in the world. Proper and dependent retributions form the world. Gods refers to beings in the heavens. Men refers to people in the world. Asuras may be found among animals and among men as well as among gods, and are described as being beings who like to fight. For example, gods who war against the heavenly generals are Asuras. Fighting is strongly embedded in the Asura nature. Asura is a Sanskrit word which translates as misshapen or as lacking wine. From morning to night, Asuras think of drinking wine, but for reasons unknown to them, whenever they try to buy some, shopkeepers will not sell. People refuse to sell Asuras alcohol, knowing that if Asuras become drunk, they beat up other people. The Asura's situation is one of having the blessings of the gods, but lacking their authority. In other words, they merit the reward of the heavens, but they lack the virtuous conduct of gods. How does one become an Asura? Those who constantly seek revenge become Asuras. For instance, if someone uses one sentence to scold you, you retort with 2 sentences to put him down. If someone hits you with one fist, you smash him back with both of yours. In general, you want to pay back double. And by acting that way when you fight, you quickly become an Asura. When someone speaks a 4-line gatha of the Sutra, not only should people come to make offerings, but gods should come as well. What does it mean to make offerings? There are offerings which are made to the Buddha, offerings which are made to the Dharma, and offerings which are made to the Sangha. Offerings to the Buddha include placing incense, flowers, lamps, fruit, adornments, or perhaps tea or water before a Buddha image. Offerings to the Dharma refers to the careful protection of the Dharma. When reading sutras, you should not be sloppy or casual. When you are not reading them, you should not just carelessly lay them aside. You should have a specific place designated for sutras. And when you place them there, you should do so very gently and respectfully, laying them squarely so that no corners extend beyond the edge of a table. Anyone who has opened his Buddha eye can see that wherever a sutra is not securely placed, way to Bodhisattva comes and stands, patiently holding up the corner of the sutra with his hand. Also, placing the sutra in an unclean place is disrespectful and cannot be considered an offering to the Dharma. Buddhist sutras should be placed above all secular books. You should have the same regard for sutras as for your own body and life. If you tear or rip up sutras or heedlessly burn them, you will be so stupid in future lives that you won't be able to remember anything, no matter how many times people attempt to teach you. The same retribution befalls those who are stingy with the Dharma. For instance, in a former life, Aniruddha endured the retribution of extreme stupidity, because prior to that, he had known the Dharma and had refused to speak it for others. Later, he planted many good roots, so when he met Sakyamuni Buddha, he certified to the fruit of arhatship. If you destroy sutras, there is no telling when you will again see a Buddha. In the future, you will be stupid and subject to unthinkably many additional retributions. Offerings to the Sangha vary according to country and custom. In Thailand and Burma, one offers food to the Sangha because in those countries, members of the Sangha go begging with their bowls. Every householder saves a bowl of food to give to the Sangha member when he comes to beg. There are 4 kinds of offerings which may be made to the Sangha. 1 is food and drink. 2 is clothing. Sangha members must depend upon the laity to provide them with offerings of clothing. Number 3, bedding. Number 4, medicine. Medicines may be given as an offering and stored until the need for them arises. People who are at home should make these offerings. People who have left the home life receive them. Since Sangha members receive offerings in that way, they cultivate the 3 recollections and 5 contemplations as they take their daily meal. Actually, members of the lay community as well as members of the Sangha should practice the 3 recollections as they eat. With the first bite of food, one thinks, I vow to cut off all evil. The vow precludes giving rise to any evil thought, not to mention doing evil deeds. With the second bite of food, one thinks, I vow to cultivate all good. You should not just mechanically recite the vows and consider that sufficient. You need to truly cut off all evil and actually cultivate all good. With the third bite of food, one thinks, I vow to take all living beings across. The vow means to take all living beings across the sea of suffering to Buddhahood. You should not glance around as you eat, finding out what everyone else is eating until you discover, my bowl doesn't have any of the delicacies you had to eat. When you are supposed to Quan Shi Yin, contemplate the sounds of the world, you are busy Quan Yin Shi, looking after food and drink. Yet, unlike the compassionate Quan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, who is mindful of everyone's food and drink in order to offer them some of his own, in case they don't have enough, as Quan Yin Shi Bodhisattva, you are busy grumbling. Why didn't I get any of that in my bowl? How come he gets to eat better food than I do? You should not give rise to such greed. Instead, you should be mindful of 5 contemplations. Number 1, reckon the amount of work it took to bring the food to where you eat it. Figure out how much work the farmer did to plant the fields and the amount of manual labor needed to cultivate, weed, nourish, and water the crops as they ripened. When ripe, the rice had to be harvested and the chaff had to be separated from the grain. Through this contemplation, you come to realize it was not easy to bring the food to your bowl. Number 2 of the 5 contemplations, consider whether your virtuous conduct is sufficient for you to accept the offering. Ask yourself, do I have any cultivation? Do I have any way virtue? If I am receiving people's offerings and I have no cultivation, I should be ashamed and penitent. Then encourage yourself. I must immediately cultivate. I must use effort and do the work to end birth and death. If your virtue is abundant, you should say, although I am greatly virtuous high master, probably the foremost of all high masters in the world in way virtue, nonetheless I shall work even harder. I accept this offering, and afterwards I shall use even more effort. I still need to progress. If I have certified to the first fruit of arhatship, then I shall seek the second fruit. If I have certified to the second fruit, I shall seek the third. And if I am a third stage arhat, then I shall seek to reach the fourth stage. I need to go forward with ever increasing vigor. Guard number 3 of the 5 contemplations. Guard your heart against excesses, of which greed and so forth are the source. When you eat, don't stuff. Eat just enough, then stop. Don't be greedy for more. Sickness enters through the mouth. If you are too greedy, you get diarrhea. No matter how good the food is, if you eat too much and there is no room for it in your stomach, it will have to move out fast. And you will suffer the illness which results from passing undigested food. Number 4, this is a dose of medicine to keep my body from wasting away. Food is like medicine which keeps my body healthy. And number 5, it is to accomplish my karma of the way that I should accept this food. Ask yourself, why do I eat these things? Then answer yourself, because I want to cultivate and realize my way karma so that ultimately I become a Buddha. When members of the Sangha are given offerings, they should not be arrogant. And when no one makes offerings to them, they should not harbor greed. Even if you are starving to death, you should cultivate the way. To starve to death in the course of cultivation is the very greatest glory, the worthiest kind of sacrifice. Don't fear starvation. In any place the sutra is found, there is the Buddha. That place is just the Buddha's Dharma body. It is the Buddha's Sarira. The sutra itself is the Buddha's Dharma body and Sarira, or a reverent disciple. All people who see the sutra should be as respectful to it as a disciple is to his master. Disciples should respect their master and should respect the Dharma. Respecting the sutra is like respecting the master. Respecting the master is like respecting the sutra. Don't discriminate between the sutra and the master. Why? The Dharma which you understand has come from your master. The master's Dharma comes from the sutra. They are 3 and 1, 1 and 3. But do not make the mistake of saying, the sutra is my master, so I don't need any other master. If you renounce your master, then the master, which is the sutra, also disappears. Chapter 13, Receiving and Holding, thus Dharma. Receiving and holding, thus Dharma. Then Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, what should the sutra be named? How should we respect and hold it? The Buddha told Subhuti, the name of the sutra is the Vajraprajna Paramita. You should respect and hold it by that name. And why? Subhuti, Prajna Paramita is spoken of by the Buddha as no Prajna Paramita. Therefore, it is called Prajna Paramita. Subhuti, what do you think? Is there any Dharma spoken by the Tathagata? Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, nothing has been spoken by the Tathagata. Subhuti, what do you think? Are all the motes of dust in 3,000 great thousand world systems many? Subhuti said, very many, world-honored one. Subhuti, all motes of dust are spoken of by the Tathagata as no motes of dust. Therefore, they are called motes of dust. The world systems are spoken of by the Tathagata as no world systems. Therefore, they are called world systems. After the Buddha said, in any place the sutra is found, there is a Buddha or a reverent disciple. Subhuti asked the Buddha what the name of the sutra should be. How should all the arhats, the sound hearers, and those enlightened to conditions, as well as living beings of the future, pay homage to the sutra? The Buddha said, its name is Vajra Prajna Paramita. Vajra has three meanings: durable, luminous, and able to cut. Vajra is so durable it cannot be destroyed by anything, but can itself destroy everything. If Vajra breaks up everything, then I won't have anything. And of what use will that be, you may ask? The reason you don't realize Buddhahood is just because you have everything. If you didn't have anything, you could realize Buddhahood. Everything refers to your attachments. All those things you cannot put down. What is the source of everything? Things come from recognizing the existence of marks. Whatever has marks has form and appearance and will change and become extinct. That which has no mark is without form and appearance and will neither change nor become extinct. No one can destroy that which has no mark. No mark is no thought, and no thought is the basic substance of the 10,000 dharmas. If you can reach the realization of no thought, you have returned to the source. Durable Vajra breaks through thought, but not through no thought. The Vajra of no thought is durable enough to smash all existing marks, all conditioned marks subject to outflows. No thought can destroy the spiritual penetrations of heavenly demons and those of external ways, because their spiritual penetrations have marks. If they had reached the state of no thought themselves, then they would not be heavenly demons and those of external ways. But because they have thought, they exist in form, create dharmas with outflows, and plant causes with outflows. The durability of Vajra can break through all such outflowing dharmas and causes. Vajra is luminous. Its light can break up all darkness. Vajra is able to cut. A sharp knife can sever something with a single slice, while a dull knife saws and still cannot cut through. Vajra functions like a keen blade as it slashes through deviations to reveal the orthodox. Vajra severs all the deviant knowledge and views of heavenly demons and those of external ways, chops through people's afflictions, and slices through ignorance. Vajra is an analogy. Prajna Paramita is a dharma. Thus the title of the sutra is established by reference to dharma and analogy. There are three kinds of prajna: literary prajna, contemplative prajna, and real mark prajna. Literary prajna refers to the sutras. With literary prajna, you can give rise to contemplative prajna, which in turn enables one to penetrate through to real mark prajna. Real mark is no mark, but is not without marks. It is no mark and not without marks. Although essentially there is but one kind of prajna, it may be divided into the three aspects: literary, contemplative, and real mark. Prajna is a denotation for a basic substance which is itself empty, which is itself false, and which is itself the middle way. Without attachment to it, it is empty. Without attachment to emptiness, it is false. Abiding in the emptiness and falseness without attachment is the middle way. The term prajna is not translated because it includes many meanings. Paramita means to arrive at the other shore. Arriving at the other shore means completing whatever task you are doing. For example, when a common person cultivates to attainment of the Buddha position, he is said to have arrived at the other shore. The other shore is opposite this shore. If this shore did not exist, the other shore would not exist either. This shore refers to birth and death. and the other shore refers to nirvana. Completing the crossing from this shore of birth and death over the sea of afflictions to the other shore of nirvana is called paramita. You, Subhuti, empty-born, you should use the name Vajra Prajna Paramita and pay the highest respect to this sutra, as if you were constantly holding it atop your head. Protecting and respecting Buddhist sutras is the same as respecting the Buddha himself. Why? A previous passage of the sutra text said, in any place where the sutra is found, it is as if there were a Buddha there. Any place this sutra is found, there can be found the Buddha's Dharma body, the Buddha Dharma and the Sangha. For that reason, you should venerate it. Subhuti, Prajnaparamita, is spoken of by the Buddha. In order to comply with the needs of beings, the Buddha spoke of the existence of Prajnaparamita. But those who saw no further than common truth developed an attachment for Prajnaparamita, which was basically false. As no Prajnaparamita, from the point of view of actual truth, the name does not exist. Since truth is apart from spoken language and written words, how can there be Prajnaparamita? It is emptiness. In actual truth, the path of words and language is cut off. The place of the heart's working is extinguished. When language and words are cut off, what Prajnaparamita could there be? None. The place where your heart thinks is gone, and no words or language are established. Therefore, it is called Prajnaparamita. If spoken from the point of view of the middle way, it is a false name called Prajnaparamita and nothing more. So do not be attached. Do not be attached to emptiness. And do not be attached to existence. Do not become attached to people. And do not attach to dharmas. If you say there certainly is Prajnaparamita, that is an attachment. So the Buddha added that it is no Prajnaparamita, which is the actual truth. Empty born, said the Buddha. What is your opinion of the doctrine I have explained? Perhaps you have misunderstood what I just said about Prajnaparamita. Let us clarify the concept. Is there any Dharma spoken by the Tathagata? Subhuti replied, nothing has been spoken by the Tathagata. What do you say about that? The Buddha spoke Dharma and at the same time asked Subhuti if he had spoken any Dharma. How should he be answered? Subhuti told him that he had not spoken Dharma. Subhuti probably took one look and understood the principle of emptiness. He was called empty born because he was foremost in understanding emptiness. So he understood that with true, real prajna, it is not the case that anything is spoken. So he said, there is nothing spoken. The Tathagata has not spoken anything. Most people are unable to comprehend this passage of text. Clearly, the Buddha spoke Dharma, and yet he asked if he had spoken Dharma. Subhuti, moreover, replied that he had not spoken Dharma. What is the meaning of that? Shakyamuni Buddha and Subhuti were discoursing on true, real prajna. Since true, real prajna does not reside in a framework of language, what can be spoken? The empty mark of all dharmas is beyond words and speech. The Buddha spoke Dharma for 49 years, and when the time of his nirvana arrived, he said that he had not spoken one word. He said, if anyone says that Tathagata has spoken Dharma, he slanders the Buddha because he has been unable to understand what I have said. Since the Buddha did not speak Dharma, why are there so many sutras spoken by the Buddha? One may rightly ask. The answer to that lies in the doctrine of speaking conditioned Dharma for people bound to conditions, and speaking unconditioned Dharma for people who dwell in the unconditioned. The Vajra Sutra says even dharmas should be relinquished. How much the more so no dharmas? The Buddha said he had not spoken Dharma because he was concerned that people would become attached to the mark of Dharma. Being attached to Dharma is the same as being attached to self. People's attachment to emptiness must also be broken. When the Dharma door of prajna is spoken, even emptiness must not become an attachment. Subhuti, what do you think? Are all motes of dust in 3,000 great thousand worlds many? Motes of dust refers to invisible particles of dust which verge on emptiness. If a visible mote of dust is divided into 7 parts, one of those 7ths is called a particle of dust verging on emptiness. It is the same as empty space. For instance, in empty space, There are many motes, dust motes, too small to be seen by the naked eye. They are examples of particles of dust verging on emptiness. So the Buddha asked if the minute particles as well as ordinary visible motes of dust in a 3,000 great thousand world were many. Subhuti replied, very many. The dust is spoken of by the Tathagata as no dust. From the point of view of the real mark, the middle way, they are said to be motes of dust. From the point of view of actual truth, they are not motes of dust. They do not exist. From the point of view of common truth, they are considered to be motes of dust. In actual fact, motes of dust is just a name. The world systems are spoken of by the Tathagata as no world systems. Particles of dust verging on emptiness make up the world. A mote of dust is the smallest form of dependent retribution. A world is the largest form of dependent retribution. The largest dependent retribution comes about from a collection of the very smallest forms of dependent retribution. The world exists because great quantities of dust motes collect together. If the motes of dust were separated, the world would disappear. So the world systems are spoken of by the Tathagata as no world systems. Therefore, they are called world systems. The doctrine above does not go beyond empty, false, and middle. Recognizing the emptiness of all dharmas is actual truth. Recognizing the falseness of all dharmas is common truth. Recognizing that all dharmas are neither empty nor false is the truth of the middle way. Furthermore, throughout the present discourse on prajna, nothing has been spoken. It is just as when Subhuti eloquently spoke prajna, and the Brahma heaven king listened well to prajna, until finally Subhuti asked him, "What have I said?" To which the Brahma God replied, "The Venerable One has not spoken." "Well, what have you heard?" pursued Subhuti. "I also did not hear a thing," came the reply. "That is true prajna," confirmed Subhuti. When nothing is spoken and nothing is heard, that is true prajna. It's called true prajna. So the prajna paramita spoken by the Buddha is not prajna paramita, but is merely called prajna paramita. It is a false name and nothing more. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of the 32 marks? No, world-honored one. One cannot see the Tathagata by means of the 32 marks. And why? The 32 marks are spoken of by the Tathagata as no 32 marks. Therefore, they are called 32 marks. Subhuti, a good man or good woman, might give up his life as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. But if a person were to receive and hold even so few as 4 lines of verse of the Sutra and explain them for others, his blessings would be greater. The Buddha asked, when you see the 32 marks, do you see the Tathagata's Dharma body? Subhuti replied that one cannot see the Tathagata's Dharma body by means of the 32 marks. The 32 marks are spoken of by the Tathagata as no 32 marks. Therefore, they are called 32 marks. The 32 marks of which Shakyamuni Buddha spoke are the marks of the response body, not the marks of the Dharma body. The response body is the transformation body. The 32 marks of the transformation body are impermanent, and so they eventually change and become extinct. The Buddha's Dharma body is neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor pure, neither increased nor decreased. Therefore, Subhuti said, the 32 marks spoken of by the Tathagata are no 32 marks. They are not the true actual marks of the Buddha. Only from the point of view of false naming are there 32 marks. Shakyamuni Buddha then spoke of a man or woman who cultivates the 5 precepts and the 10 good acts, who gives his body and life as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. When Shakyamuni Buddha was cultivating the way, he gave up his body to a tiger and cut off his flesh for an eagle. Once, when cultivating in the mountains in a former life, Shakyamuni Buddha saw a mother tiger and her cub in the snow. Because of heavy snows, the other animals had hidden away, and the tiger could find no prey to supply herself with food and drink. Both she and her cub were about to die of starvation. The cultivator realized that if the one starved, 2 would die. And he made a vow to give his body to the tiger to eat. Think of that. A tiger is a vicious beast. Who would want to sacrifice his own body to such an animal? However, Shakyamuni Buddha laid down before the tiger and allowed himself to be eaten. Another time, when Shakyamuni Buddha was cultivating the way on the causal ground, one day a little bird ran into his hut, terrorized by a huge eagle who was pursuing it. Save me," cried the little bird. "That eagle wants to eat me." "How can I save you?" asked Shakyamuni Buddha. "If you save him, I will starve to death," shrieked the eagle. "If you save one life and kill another, that is no compassion." When Shakyamuni Buddha heard the eagle's plea, he cut off a piece of his own flesh and gave it to the great bird to eat. The eagle downed it in no time and came back for more. He ate yet another piece and still was not full. He continued to come back for more until finally the Buddha said, "All right, you may have my entire body." The bird then picked his bones clean. Formerly, Shakyamuni Buddha went to extremes of giving in his search for the Buddha way. But in the present time, if people give even a little money, their hearts ache, their liver hurts, and their whole body is racked with pain. I gave $200 and could not sleep for 3 nights straight, they moan. It took me a whole week to earn that much, and it will be another week before I see another 200. They keep very accurate books. Can we keep sloppy books then, you may ask? No. You should not keep sloppy books either. Shakyamuni Buddha did not keep track of such deeds when he was on the causal ground, and as a result, he realized Buddhahood. The very reason you have not realized Buddhahood is that you are interested in keeping your books too clearly. When Shakyamuni Buddha was on the causal ground, he gave up 1,000 bodies to rescue and take living beings across. To speak more explicitly, every mote of dust in the 3,000 great thousand worlds is a place where all Buddhas of the 10 directions have given up their bodies and lives. You should resolve your heart on the great vehicle. If you do not give up body and life, at least get rid of all the things outside the body, all your wealth and household. Quickly be done with them. That is also considered giving up one's body and life. The blessings and virtues of a person who accepts, maintains, and speaks for others, even as few as 4 lines of verse from the sutra, are greater than the blessings of someone who gives up his body and life as many times as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges. After you have heard the Vajra Sutra, you should quickly lecture it to yourself and obtain more blessings and virtue. The merit and virtue from such giving is greater than that from giving any amount of money.